I had a lot of support from my family and my partner's family. They were all breastfed. My siblings and my partner's siblings were all breastfed. I don't know anyone that was bottle fed in my family or his family. Having my peer counselor, May, what gave me a lot of confidence, because I'd send her a message and she sent me one back and I'd be like, am I doing this wrong? Is it normal for him to do this when he's nursing? And she always reassured me that if I felt it was right, and if he was happy with it, then it was normal. Get your bag ready like a month ahead of time. That was really my main fallout. I didn't pack it until I was 39 weeks, and then I went to my midwife appointment. She's like, all right, you're 7 centimeters, you need to go to the hospital. I was like, oh, my bag's not packed yet, so kind of gonna have to run home really quick. So they kind of looked down upon me on that one, but I didn't, other than that, there wasn't anything that I could have prepared myself for. I thought it really depended on the baby and myself, what was most comfortable for both of us. And he best did it one way, so if somebody came in and tried to advocate me to do something the other way, I'd just kind of be like, no, it's not gonna happen. He doesn't like it. Yeah, the nursing staff all seemed really knowledgeable, and you could tell that all of them just wanted your best interest. But they were all really nice about it. But at one point, I just kind of said, it's gonna work my way, and it's kind of how it's gonna be. But they all were more than helpful with the way that I did it. If I needed a little extra help latching on, they'd be right there to help me. I brought a boppy pillow with me to kind of prepare myself for breastfeeding, but that was the only thing that really helped me. I didn't know that I had broken my pelvis until after I left the hospital. We heard a pop in labor, but they told me it was my water breaking because my water hadn't broken yet. So I went home with a broken pelvis, and 4 days later, my mom just told me it was odd that I still couldn't walk from labor pains. So I went to the ER and they did x-rays. Wow. The entire time my child stayed in the same room, and I loved it that way. I think if I was in a different hospital and he had to go to a nursery, I would have been a little torn. The crib was always next to the bed, or was at the foot of the bed by the sink, but it was never out of the room. They never took him without telling me, and I loved that part of it. Yeah, I was able to breastfeed the entire time since I had him until I left, and then I was able to breastfeed for almost a week before I went to the ER and they told me what had happened, and they suggested I punt for my own comfort. Yeah, they put my child right on my chest right after I had him, and I was very out of it. I had 22 hours of labor and pushing, so I was really out of it. I don't remember still when they put him on or anything, but we have pictures, so I know it happened. Yeah, it was about 2 hours after I had given birth that he finally decided that he was hungry and stopped crying, and he latched on really easily. He was breastfed at the hospital. He didn't have any bottles or we didn't have any nipple shields. It was all natural. My child used one probably, I think, a month after I had him. He finally wanted one because I was just so distraught. One day he didn't want to nurse, he didn't want to have a bottle, he didn't want to be held, so I tried the passy and he took right to it. But at the hospital, no one ever said the word pacifier. They are totally against it at Porter. They gave me Vicky Kirby's telephone number to call if I needed any help or if I had any trouble latching or any really breastfeeding info that I needed. I think the biggest help that WIC really played a role in was when I only had a single breast pump because I was really only planning on using that on the go if I had to really express milk. But once I broke my pelvis and I couldn't breastfeed him right off, I called Jessica at our WIC office, and she set me up with a hospital grade 1 that absolutely saved my life because it was taking me over an hour to pump with a single breast pump before I got that. And then getting the formula once my son had stopped breastfeeding around 5-6 months, it was an astronomical help because I never knew the formula was like $14 for one that's going to last you like 3 days. My peer counselor was actually May, who I know around the community, And she had gotten in touch with me once I first started out with WIC when I was still pregnant, and she was just giving me well wishes, giving me feedback. If I needed anything, just give her a call or an email. And I didn't really get in touch with her after I gave birth for about a week because I was getting used to my new baby. But as soon as I had really any questions, I wouldn't hesitate to send her an email, and she was right, like hours after, or even a day after, she'd get right back to me. I definitely recommend it. I think you kind of have to be direct in the fact that if some hours of the day doesn't work to give you a call, then I'd say that right off the bat. But I initiated that with my peer counselor, like email's better, or if I give you a call, but just depending on when I'd be home or if my child was sleeping, it'd be really hard. So I think more of having a really direct relationship is the best way to have a peer counselor. Because being a new mom, you're all up in sorts because you have your mom telling you one thing to do and her way of doing it, but then you're told new ways by new moms, so having an in-betweener was the best. Yeah, I think the way that my peer counselor went about it was great. She asked when would be a good time to call, if calling was okay at all, really, and then she would never say the way I was doing things was wrong. It was more of giving advice instead of being over the top with kind of pushing breastfeeding and just being an advocate for it. Knowing that I had the resources was the biggest help for me instead of somebody constantly calling me, asking me how I was doing. That was really the best piece, is knowing that I could make that phone call for help. I think the challenges of breastfeeding and the success and the downfalls of it would definitely be if you're trying to soothe your child and you get anxious, because that was my problem at first, is I'd get really anxious if he's crying and I tried to get him to latch, then he wouldn't latch, then both of our anxiety was too high for him to even nurse. But I think definitely successful breastfeeding is if you can stay calm when they're upset, just so they know that it's going to be a peaceful time, they can eat. And that was really the time that I knew I was being successful, is if he was crying but I could still stay calm so he could relax himself. I had a lot of challenges when I first started out breastfeeding. I had a broken pelvis after I gave birth, so I had to pump for the first month, and then I was scared that if I had stopped pumping he wouldn't want to latch on or anything, but he took right to the breast. I think the advice I pass on to my best friend about breastfeeding would definitely be not to give up. Because if they're having troubles latching on for one day, it doesn't mean they're going to be the same the next day, because breastfeeding is all up in the air. You kind of have to go by what your child really wants to do, and you have to be patient with it. So if you have to pump for a day, you have to pump for a day, but you have to be consistent with it. There wasn't really anything that made sense to me. I think I was kind of playing it all by card. I knew that it was going to be a different experience for everyone, so I always took everybody's advice and their input on things, but I knew that my baby's going to be different than theirs, and his attitude's going to be totally different, and our nursing experience is going to be 100% different. So I played it with cards. The main thing I'd pass on to someone that's trying to be really successful with breastfeeding is that you have to be consistent, and you also have to be your own advocate. And you have to be, when you get to the hospital, if you're comfortable with something, you need to tell them that. But if something's making you uncomfortable or they're being too pushy, you really have to be your own advocate in stating that. You have to tell them if a way's not working and they try and just really push it on you. You have to say it's not going to happen, it's not going to work, and if another way works better, you can say that. I wouldn't have changed my experience any other way. I definitely would have changed having to pump the first month, but being able to have people to call was, I think, the best fit for me, instead of having somebody constantly call me and nag me about breastfeeding and I need to be breastfeeding. That was really the big part of it.